Thank you. I'm pleased to support this motion on behalf of the Nationals put forward by David Davis. It is so important that we have transparency, and that is what this motion is calling for. It is calling for transparency when it comes to the CFMEU issue. Now, this is significant, very significant, what we are seeing happening in this state. And I tell you, I guess a number of movies have come to mind when I consider this matter. The first would be The Godfather, because the types of things that we've been seeing happening on big build sites, over $15 billion going to the hands of criminals. There's been reports of fraudulent shifts, ghost shifts, drugs, supervisors giving them to workers, top salaries going to criminals, government cars being used, strippers performing shows on site. Now, this is appalling, and I have been contacted by so many people who are furious that this has happened under the government's watch, under the Premier's watch. Now, to read an article from The Age, and this refers to the Godfather type theme, but it talks about Watson in his report and what he said. It says, from there, the maths is simple. So he's talking about settled on a rough estimate of 15%, describing it as not unreasonable and probably conservative. That's talking about the $15 billion that's been talked about. From there, the maths is simple. The leadership of the CFMEU has cost the Victorian taxpayers something like $15 billion. There is another point to this, as will be seen. Much of that $15 billion has been poured directly into the hands of criminals and organised crime gangs, Watson said. That's been reported in The Age. Now, another movie that comes to mind, I'd have to say, is Dirty, Rotten Scoundrels, because this, I think, has been reflected well in the article that Jeff Kennett wrote just yesterday that was published. And I'll quote, Labor under Daniel Andrews won the Victorian election in 2014. He immediately, as he had committed to, tore up the East-West Link contract, costing Victorians $1.1 billion, for which we got nothing. Money totally lost. Andrews argued he did so because the project was not justified on a benefit-cost basis. Rubbish. He was preparing to rip up the CFMEU protocol and enrich the CFMEU with major government work. In 2015, Jacinta Allen, as Transport Minister, broke the union agreement and allocated work on the Metro Tunnel to the CFMEU. Then she allocated work for the rail crossing removals to the CFMEU. Jacinta Allen's husband was a senior officer at the CFMEU at the time. Since then, all major infrastructure projects have been awarded to the CFMEU. It goes on to talk about other issues, but I think it's very revealing of what's been happening in this state. Another movie I thought of when I was thinking about this issue is certainly the Titanic. And it makes me think about what happened with the Commonwealth Games. I remember raising concerns with Senator Bridget McKenzie in Bendigo in April prior to the cancellation of the Commonwealth Games, saying, where is the money coming from? You know, who's paying for this? And having some accountability at the time.
Mr. Batchelor.
This is a very narrow documents motion about the matters before us. I'm not sure that a reference to the Commonwealth Games is within the scope.
Yeah, I think that it is a narrow motion. As a first speaker, Ms Broad has some latitude, and as a first speaker, some latitude, but I think that for people that follow with their contributions can respond to the first speaker's contribution. Ms Broad, to continue.
Thank you. Well, I guess I just am wondering if history is perhaps repeating itself here, because at the time the Premier was like, no, all good, and then soon after that the Commonwealth Games were cancelled. And now we have the Premier again saying, all good, you know, nothing to see here, the estimates are not accurate, but not willing to proceed to an inquiry. Now, another movie that comes to mind is Happy Gilmore, because certainly what we've seen in this state is massive debt and huge taxes being put onto people by this government. A massive debt has been racked up, over $190 billion, and new taxes have been introduced to pay for that debt. And yet here we have the facts on the table that billions of dollars have gone into the hands of the criminals under this government. So I will think of another movie, The Big Short, because in that movie it talks about the need, no accountability and concerns being raised. And I think that is what this motion is all about. It is holding the government to account for what's happened in this state. And I think we know that the request for these documents is important, but what is needed is a royal commission. Because getting to the bottom of what's happened in this state is so important. And to quote from the Australian Financial Review, to offer a real diagnosis of the conditions that give rise to this corruption and what the government should have been doing will require a Royal Commission-style inquiry, one with powers to compel witnesses and materials, including from government. Ironically, the need for a transparent inquiry arises precisely because of the denial and the refusal to review the government's own actions and mistakes. So there we have it. I think it's very clear this motion is needed, these documents are needed, because right now we see that there has been no transparency and we cannot have this continue. An inquiry is needed to make sure that the facts are put on the table for public transparency, because at the end of the day, this is Victorian taxpayer money. The government is elected to manage that money, and they do not seem to care, and at the end of the day, Victorians are paying the price.